what that is? Discipline. Selfish.
No joke. We're legitimate.
Fucking do this, then do it. Do it 100%, because I'm trying to.
We recognize that we are limitless.
You gotta be a champion to become a champion, right? Winning is a habit because we create habits that lead to good execution and success.
Welcome to episode 38 of the Coaches Show. I'm Mike Bianca, coach of the New Orleans Hurricanes, with my co-host and good friend, Ryan Gray, coach of AC Diesel. Give him a wave, Ryan. Tonight's guest is a former player and coach for San Diego Dynasty, former team owner and coach of ASG Aftermath, former coach of the Los Angeles Ironmen and AC Diesel, and now the newest coach of the Brooklyn Bears. You know him, you love him, Mike Hinman. Mike has helped write the book on coaching, having developed some of the best players in the league. We all know it, right? His pedigree is long. He's also been an industry leader and one of the most successful event promoters in the world. Ryan and I can't wait to talk to him. But first, tonight's episode is brought to you by Max Sportswear. For all your custom paintball goods, get maxed. New Coaches Show apparel coming soon. By the way, it is awesome. Our friend Charles did a great job on this one. I'm really excited to show you guys, so hit him up. And BKI, the best knowledge in paintball. New content's being added regularly, and you don't want to miss the additions Ryan and I are making to the coaches section. All the BKI professors have incredible content on the platform, and we're stoked to be a part of it. So thank you, BKI. Ryan, shall we mention our upcoming coaches clinic?
Yeah, man. So we got two. We got one in Drew. We'll do in, like 23 days. And then we have our Chicago clinic. Both of those are doing well. Lots of people signing up, getting lots of questions about both of them. Before we kind of jump deeper into the show, I do want to tell you guys, I apologize. It does not look like our connection to Major League Paintball YouTube is working well. I guess I'll have to yell at someone later. So I apologize about that. Nonetheless, yeah, so we have both of those clinics coming up. If you do sign up quickly, by the 15th for the Drew clinic, and then by like the 26th, I believe, for the Chicago clinic, you'll get a shirt, as well as we make binders and all kinds of stuff for you guys to have for the tournament. So get signed up as soon as possible.
Outstanding. I think the man of the hour has finally made it on here. Shall we bring him in?
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Hey, boys.
Always good to see you, Mike.
Good to see you too. Trying to get my volume up. Can we turn the treble up in my headphones? Thank you. Sorry.
Well, you sound great.
Oh, wow. I appreciate it. I just walked in the door.
Well, thanks, man. I know for you West Coast guys, it's tough when we do these at 5 o'clock your time, like getting home and probably right in the middle of your dinner time. So we appreciate you taking the time, dude.
I'm glad to be on here, man. Definitely.
Awesome.
Cool to be on with two friends.
I came in on two wheels myself, and I came in on two wheels, got out, threw on a different shirt, and then had dinner and got on the show. But I do want to apologize if I'm having audio issues tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan has warned me that probably one of my cables is bad. So if I'm tweaking, my bad. So
I somehow thought this was at 5:30, and I told Tracy, I was like, "Oh, we got a half an hour. Don't worry about it." And then one of the Brooklyn Bears guys sent it on the team chat, and I'm like, "That's weird. They're live. Oh, they'll probably talk for a half an hour." And then I looked at Ryan's email, and I'm like, "Yeah, nope, for sure got that one wrong."
Well, it's cool. You made it right on time, man. So we'll just kind of jump in and talk about light stuff first. Did you have an opportunity to check out the ESPN show?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it wasn't super long, and I think it is, I read a lot of comments, right, from other people talking about it. And it is what paintball will be to get to the next level. Like what we all know as paintball will not be what we see on TV someday. Like back in the day, they used to do the Rage in the Cage in Vegas. It was a 3-man thing that they were trying, like it's going to be whatever we know as paintball will be heavily mutated to get it on TV, because the problem with our sport is, like we all know, it doesn't follow one ball around the field. There's 5-on-5. I've always said this, and people take it like I'm being negative, that I think it's a better sport to do post-production like Maddie and them did, because there's just so much happening, and to be able to really break it down and understand how great a great move really is, or like what the Russians were doing out there to win, or Aftershock was doing. I just don't know live, even with Maddie and all of us that have a decently high IQ in the game, if we can truly express, you know, I'm a snake side guy. I love seeing the snake side of the field. Let's say you're a D side guy and you love seeing that. We can only give our perspective of what we have. But then, you know, you watch the games, and for like all of us that are coaches, we watch all this Go Sports footage and we continue to dissect it. And days, you know, it's almost like a new album comes out and you hear whoever your favorite band is, in a week, you're like, God, that new Slipknot album sucked. And then a week later, you're like, it was pretty cool. And then a month later, you're like, that's one of the greatest albums ever made. I think there's a lot of that to be said in paintball. You see something and you see one dynamic, and then as you get deeper into it and you really absorb and observe it, you really start to see all the other stuff that's happening. So I think doing it post-production like they did, I mean, you hear people saying, you know, the Go Sports cameras weren't the cleanest. It's not the cleanest when you're going from the 200 to the 300 and you're at breakneck speed. That's about what it looks like out there, right? Like it's at a fast pace. So I think they did a good job. You know, no matter what you do when you're leading the way, somebody, and a lot of voices will always be negative against what you're doing. And that's just an unfortunate part of the world we live in now. But I believe they're doing their absolute best job to get it on TV. I know a lot of money was put up, a lot of time was put up. And at the end of the day, anything we can do, from a box office movie hit that plays paintball to us playing paintball to getting it in front of other eyes, can't hurt the sport. It will sell more cases of paint than doing nothing. So I think it was a good job, and it was a great first step for Tom. I mean, dude, can you imagine being in Tom's shoes? I can, as a tournament promoter, I'd take those shoes off, right? Like, no matter what that dude does, he is just catching. And Tom and I talk about it, right? Like, he calls me, I call him. That dude's just jumping on hand grenades left and right. You know, like, I take my hat off to everybody at the NXL doing what they're doing, trying to move it forward in what is a horrible economic time that we're in right now, right? Like, whether you're Eclipse or Lux Shocker coaches or whoever you are, JT, Core, Valken, man, I don't know anybody in the industry right now that's saying, like, things are good, right? Like, there is red lights flashing everywhere. Like, the warning, the dashboard is lighting up with the car going off the road right now. So I think in a tough time, they're doing the absolute best they can. And yeah, I think it's great, right? Hopefully it gains momentum. That's all we can do.
I'm glad you kind of brought up the comments, because every time I talk to Tom, I'm like, dude, stop reading the comments, man. Like, stop reading. That's not your audience. Like, that's not what you're going after.
You're totally right. And here's a crazy one. Like WCPL, we do polls, right? What should we do? Yeah. And we do these polls, and I can obviously see who votes on it. So then I go back through, and through APPA, all of us league promoters have a window to look up IDs. If you've ever played in my league, I can look you up. But if you haven't played in my league, I can still find you. So I can look at, like last name, Bianca, BIA, the first 3 letters, and I can find if Mike has played my league. So I get these polls where hundreds of people vote, and sometimes I don't sleep at night, right? So I just stay up, and I've looked, deal with borderline insomnia, and I've looked through every name on a poll, and we've had polls with hundreds of votes with less than 50% of those people actually have ever in 16 years played WCPL. So you're commenting and you're voting, but you don't actually support it. So that's a tough one, I think, for guys like Tom that are out there trying to do their best and trying to appease people that in all reality live under a bridge somewhere and are just trolls and just want to be the most negative human beings they can be to what he's doing, right? Like, I'll tell you what, I'm the second largest league in the world right now, WCBL. It's not even close. And there's no way I can do what Tom's doing. So
Right.
if you think somebody else can do it better, like what, I'm going to fly to Spain and talk to ESPN officials? Like, no, that shit ain't happening, man. Never. Like,
Right.
never. I'm going to sushi with Tracy tonight. That's where I'm going. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Like, dude,
like,
he works his ass off. He
Absolutely.
like does everything he can. And it's interesting when we have conversations about like pulling this thing and pushing this thing. Because he's like, well, it would be nice every now and again to not have to drag. And I'm like, dude, the only person who thinks you're dragging is you because you read the fucking comments. Like, stop.
Totally.
Stop
Yeah,
reading the
absolutely.
comments.
Like,
Yeah, like the people who truly care, they are pushing with you. Like, they're pushing
Yeah.
with you. They care.
well, they're
about
the
what you're
ones
doing.
that you don't even recognize the name. You know they play paintball, but they're the guys sharing it, saying, hey, this is what I've dedicated 20 years of my life to their family members. Please come watch paintball tonight at 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever time zone you were in. So I think, the glass is way more than half full. I think there's a lot of us, even people that haven't played in 10 years, that are still happy to promote and support paintball. So I think it's, we hear this talk of possible UFC deal and something like that. To get the backstory that we all love so much, right? There's the moments that we're in coaching. All of us are in the box coaching, and that's a really special moment. We're all really blessed to be there. But when we leave that game and we walk behind those pits that are closed off to everybody, and we all see each other in the back channel, and we all see each other, like all those stories, there is such a rich and deep brotherhood and like community back there that a lot of us have put decades and decades and decades into earning to get back there. You know what I mean? That if they can ever show that and like what we're doing behind the scenes and the passion that goes into it, it's going to be a really interesting story someday that we can get out there. And then maybe our wives and girlfriends and kids will understand why we love the game so much and why we're so wrapped up in it, because it's really, the sum of it is more than all of the parts of it, right? Like, it is truly an amazing thing that we're all part of.
Now, there's a lot that you're saying there, Mike, that I want to unpack there. First of all, there's not a single Iron Maiden album that I don't love. I've loved every single one of them. So let's get that out.
That's why you're the number one fan.
Yeah,
that's right. That's absolutely right. So, but you're absolutely right. I think, what the job they were able to do in 22 minutes, 24 minutes to try and tell that story, baby steps. We have to take those baby steps. And I think you make an excellent point to follow up on your most recent comment about the fact, besides the post-production, the fact that if you were able to ever show that passion, that energy, that love that is behind the net, I think you're going to see a whole different, you're going to pick up so many new fans of the sport. It won't even be funny. But you also make another interesting point in the fact that with every other sport, football, golf, soccer, baseball, there's one ball to follow. And where the ball is where the action is. And with paintball, that's not the case. So we have to be able to show that in a different way. And you're absolutely right about everything you said. And to follow up on the Tom Cole thing, I don't want his job, man. Those are some big shoes, and people keep stepping on him, and he keeps moving forward. So,
and it's funny though, like, who's really going to go test him? Like, as the second largest league in my shoes, and now with USXBL on top of it, like, I would be the next one in line. And, people talk to me. It's okay to say this out loud, right? Like, people say, someday, no. Right. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to do what I do good at. And I'm going to focus on the newer players. And Tom's going to focus on this. And hopefully he does it. Like, it's just like playing team paintball. We all have to go at 100% and go run through that wall. And if the guy over here doesn't run through it with me, I still have to go break my neck going through this wall. You know what I mean? And that is just the level of speed that we play out, and we must do this in the sport. So for me, like, wanting to be Tom, dude, I don't even want to be at my tournaments on Sunday. Like, everybody's crying about something, and the culture of paintball is so rough. You know what I mean? Random side note, some of your teams from down at LAX were at USXBL 2 weeks ago. Every one of those teams were complete class acts. Like, no issues, tough calls came down, as they do on Sundays, complete class acts. So hats off to the whole LAX crew down there that played paintball. And they all played really good paintball too. It's not like they got walked off the field. They were handling business out there. It was like mini Hurricane teams out there. Their comms were really good. The discipline was good. It was cool to see.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm going to share that with Drew Bankston and all that crew at LAX. A lot of, something we've worked on, Mike, and this, we're very strict about culture. right? We
Yeah.
really want you to let your game speak for you. Right.
Absolutely.
And that's you speak out on the field, and then we all go get a beer afterwards off the field.
Absolutely. And I think that's something the sport is missing, right? Like the 90 degrees of difference. Everybody sees the field left to right. We understand it out the end zones, right? Like from end to end. And it's different. When we get out there, it's not personal. Like if my son and me were playing against each other, what we'd be trying to put each other down. The second we're done, we go back through the net. We shake hands after the game. It's nothing but love. You know what I mean? And even in the process, just having respect for the other team. I think, if you're a fan of the Hurricanes and you want to say go Hurricanes, if I'm playing against you, I never take that personal. When we start crossing the line and saying F those dudes or F those dudes, like that's where we cross a line, right? It's no longer healthy and productive. It's just counterproductive. A negative mind can never yield positive results.
Yeah, totally.
Excellent.
Yeah, and kind of going back to, we were talking about the story, like most people have no idea what the backside of the pro field looks like just because they're not back there. And I agree that the shit that happens, when the 10 guys are not out on the field trying to kill each other, that's the story. It's the car rides, it's the dinners, it's the experiences. Yeah, the experiences.
It's the hey, I got to get to the airport. Can you give my guy a ride, Ryan, a ride to the airport? What time are you out at? Cool. Hey, jump in with them. Just again, the brotherhood of the game. When I was down at LAX practicing with you guys last year, walking over to the other field and talking to your teams down there and like all the local paintball community that we're all so part of. Definitely an interesting part of the story that I feel is our next step to. We almost need just a show of the back line at the NXL of just, even the joking around trash talk that, this guy played on his team and now I'm not there anymore. So there's going to be, witty banter back and forth or, what I mean? Hey man, what place are you in? I was just checking. Cool. And keeping, there's just so much cool backstory that a lot of people never get to see. And you see it in the comments, right? Like when GI Sports does, who's the best snake player ever? And it's this guy or this guy. And you just sit there and you're like, man, there is such a disconnect from what the general public sees to what we all see. And I believe we all know. It's interesting.
Yeah. Ryan and I actually had a very similar conversation about that. If we were to have true stats out there, right? Like legitimate stats, people would probably be really surprised at who some of the best paintball players are.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you look at dudes like Malloy and guys like that on the Russians, like, who wouldn't be happy to have that guy on their team? Please, like,
right? Yeah.
Which is something you always hear me say, right? Like, if Ryan Greenspan, if Dynasty just didn't exist anymore, just for whatever reason, it just didn't exist. They said we're done. 19 teams in the league would call Ryan Greenspan in about 3.2 business seconds, right? Like it would be fast. That phone would be ringing. And same with Malloy, and there's other guys, Tyler Harmon. Those are truly, you can say, well, he's got to be the pound for pound. If you're going to build a young team, that's the guy I'm putting on it, right?
Yep. Those last two guys you said would be my, like, if I was going to build a team around two guys right now, it'd be Marcelo and Tyler.
Yeah.
Because they're going to help everybody around them be better.
Yep.
And their worst moment, their most fiery anger moment is still going to yield productive results to the young men around them. Like the young guy, Ryan, you brought over from Notorious with you to Diesel. Like that kid listening to Marcelo, like you want to see Marcelo is fired up or ornery, whatever you want to, pissed off as possible, because he's still got a lot of productive criticism to give somebody, probably losing in that moment. Those guys help. And then there's other pros, right, that just go over the edge that just really don't help anybody. But yeah, those guys, hands down, best players in the game.
I don't think people understand the importance of being a good teammate. I don't think people understand the impact of that sort of thing. So,
because we hear as coaches, right, cancer, right? There's cancers on teams, right? And it's a tough word to use, right? Because we all know somebody or about a family member, whatever. But in paintball, we refer to this term as a cancer. And a lot of the times it's the guy that's, the loudest, just blowing his mind, fuck you guys, like losing his mind. But in my decades of doing this now there's different levels of cancer, right? Like there's that guy that just you can tell, or some guys are probably burning out of paintball, right? Like they're on the back end of it. They just can't walk away with grace, right? So they're out there just kind of losing their mind. But there's other guys, I call them the whisperers. It's when, you as the coach and you're calling, like for Ryan, right? You're calling Mouse and Mark and whoever the five are. It's not a knock. And I'm not saying there's anybody on your team that has this, but you look to the back of the pit and it's the guy that makes eye contact with you. And without saying anything, as a coach, I can read your mind. And you're motherfucking me in your mind right now because I'm not putting you on the field.
Totally.
Even though at practice, I gave you 50 reps, 50 reps, and you did nothing with those reps. Where these 5 guys that I just called, even if we had a great day or a bad day, whatever it was, those great players still have great points. Like we came down and practiced, Mike and his guys, Saturday. I mean, to be fair, I believe it was, you said the worst beating you guys had probably ever taken at your home field. But you could still see guys like Drew still had big points in a tough day for you guys because Drew is a great, the whole team's great paintball players. Great players still have great points. The Whisperers, though, are being very unrealistic about their own ability.
Yeah.
And they're the guys in the back, and then, well, Ryan or Mike's calling the same play here, and this is why we're losing. And it's the Whisperers. They'll never say it to your face. They'll never come out and be like, Ryan, I fucking disagree with you. And this is why in a closed door team meeting, they'll be the ones that are, but the eyes never lie. Like you can see it in their eyes. And those are the guys, and we see it, right? All of us, I'm sure at some point help younger teams. Like out here, I'm out at ASG working with whoever cares to hear me talk. And you hear it on these young teams, this guy is always late and he's this and he's that. It's like, just let him go. Like it's not this difficult. Paintball's got to be fun, and if it's not fun, let them go. You know what I mean? Yeah, you call them snowflakes, and there are people like it's what one of the guys said right there, right? Like they call him a snowflake, but it's just somebody that I always say this, man. We go through a long weekend of practice, and we go home from a tournament. When those lights go off on Sunday night, and we're laying in bed, things tend to get real clear for us, right? Like especially as coaches, as players, we tend to know like. Fuck, I could have done this better. We could have done this better. This is where we made mistakes. You know what I mean? Especially when the tires leave the tarmac and we're heading back home. As coaches, we're like, shouldn't have ran that. Should have ran more of this. It all becomes more clear. But if guys aren't all working on the same page and can't be honest, I always tell this when I first went to Dynasty, the way Ryan and Alex and Oliver and all those guys would talk to each other, and Ryan and I, great friends to this day. I remember putting my arm around Ryan Greenspan one time, and I'm like, dude, if you ever talk to me like that, like, it's going down like 4 flats on a dump truck. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not good. I don't talk to you like that. Don't talk to me like that. But what I found out later, and that was me being a younger person, long before I was a coach, was there was nothing between them. They could just say, Ryan, this is why we lost because you weren't shooting here. That guy got here, shot me, shot Mike. And they could, with no filter. They didn't need filter. They didn't need fluff. They just had straight down the pipe. But that's also what led them to win and continue to win to this day. Because when things get bad, Skinny Kevin and them can say as few words as possible with maximum impact on what we must do.
Yeah,
my opinion.
That's
huge.
Oh my gosh. Whoever is listening to this show right now, on the coach's show, that was such great advice right there, Mike. That one segment right there, we need to make a reel from that one, Ryan Gray, because that there was saying by having such direct communication, we talk about this all the time. We've talked about how the toughest thing for a lot of paintball players to do, Mike, is look in the mirror and have that honest conversation with themselves. And when they take that criticism, it's not an attack. I'm not attacking you. I want you to be better. So I want you to recognize the fault so that we see it as an opportunity to improve. And I think what you just talked about is knocking down those walls of being able to have that direct, straight, no frills, straight to the point, efficient conversation. So we're moving in the right direction and rolling all together at sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. But that's an issue in paintball, right? And on the coach's show, with us as coaches and hopefully the people out there that are either coaches or players that are running teams or guys participating in it. It's like guy that plays for Ryan Mouse, right? I built that kid. He was a nobody kid at SC Village, built him up. To this day, Mouse is an odd human being. He constantly has to like justify how great he is to me. And I tell Mouse, I'm like, dude, you are better at paintball than I ever was. Like I was a back center guy. Oliver told me left or right at 3 seconds, whichever way he wanted me to shoot, to open the golden brick road so he could run down the field and be Oliver Lang. I said, Mouse, like you are so great at this game. I was never that good. But again, you have to be able to humble yourself because when you get to this level that we've gotten to of pro paintball, it's like we go out to LAX, right? All 3 of us are out there. We're throwing the football around, right? I'm 6'2". You throw a ball up here, I grab one. I feel like I'm Tyreek Hill. I'm not fucking Tyreek Hill, dude. I can't run that fast. I can't catch that fast. But a lot of these players are out there thinking that because they shot this guy or they shot that guy, that they're playing at the NFL level. No, at this sport that we play at, it has to be played at like guys like Mouse and other guys on both of your teams are playing at such a high level. People cannot understand the discipline that has to go into them doing that one little. It's like opening a watch up, right? And all those little gears. I can't tell you what any of those gears do, but I know without every one of those gears, we don't go tick, 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 or the rollie don't just keep smoothing across. You know what I mean? But that's what you have to do. And, as you go down the divisions, maybe you don't need all 5 guys clicking together. You need 4. Or if you're in Division 5 working your way into 4, you might just be more talented than the other guys around you. But trust me, every step you make up this ladder in paintball, it catches up to you. Sooner or later, God-given ability ends, and we have to put in work. We have to obsess. All 3 of us have not had a day in 365 of the last days that we haven't thought about paintball.
No.
Right? Like you have to be so extreme with this. Like there's, I'm driving down the road with my lady and she's like, what are you thinking about? And it's like, I'm thinking I'm on the Bears now, right? Now I got to think, is this guy going to do this job? Is this guy going to do this job? Can he do this job? Right? Like I'm thinking about this 24 hours a day. And that's the level we're all at. And that's what produces results probably, right? Like everybody shows up on Saturday and Sunday. It's going the extra mile.
Yeah, so great segue. You kind of brought it up. Like we just really we want to kind of get into the Bears now, and I'll sort of start from the beginning of the season. Like we've had a lot of coaches on, especially through the beginning of the season and the off season, and we talked a lot about kind of that that come together between and it's really weird because it wasn't like at first people thought it was like a buyout and it was this and it was that, and really it was just the dissolution of one team and a few guys moving to the Bears, right? And so there was a lot of conversation. Yeah. So there was a lot of conversation about like, hey, how are they going to do? You had 2 programs that were, struggling to kind of keep it together. Joey Blute being Joey Blute, he just doesn't sugarcoat anything. He's like, man, you take 2 struggling programs, you put them together, you're going to have a struggling program. And they kind of proved everybody wrong. They've been they've been very consistent. They played well, and Friday, Saturday, they've gone 2-2, I think every event. Overall, I believe their win-loss is 7-7. They communicate really well as a group. Like they've really proven a lot of people in the league wrong, and been really consistent. Now, bringing you in creates a whole new dynamic for them, where they now have a really strong leader who's not been a part of their program, where their previous coach was kind of a part of the thing, and now bringing in outside eyes, I think will be huge for them. And especially somebody with, your intelligence and knowledge about the game. We kind of mentioned this last week with Maddie, and you're probably second to this. I don't know that anybody watches as much paintball, even on the divisional level as you do. And I don't care what divisions you're watching, you're still seeing like, oh, this should have happened here. And and you're doing that math really fast in your head. So bringing you in now, so what are the first kind of steps now, right? Like have you been to a practice yet?
I had USXBL last weekend, this weekend down. And then we're setting up now for WC out here at ASG. Right. I have that this weekend. And then the following weekend, I'm on a plane to Virginia to the home field and work with everybody. My story with the Bears goes back a long ways. When Aftermath first started first season, we went head-to-head with a team called East Coast Empire, which was the Altamores were on it. And there was just a really good, positive rivalry. We had pictures of the first event, Huntington Beach, us and them, because it was all the kids. All Mouse and all them were kids. And they were good dudes. It was like the Jersey Shores meets California. And we've always had a really good friendship. Like the Altamores have stayed at my house, hung out with me. Even when I haven't been around them, we've always stayed in somewhat touch. There's always been a mutual respect. Then, Magic Mike that runs the team, we've always had just a really good friendship between us. When I was let go last year from Diesel, I was reached out immediately and asked if I wanted to go to World Cup. I just wasn't feeling it at the point, because for me out here, in Southern California, anything we do is a flight because there's really not a lot happening around here, short of, Dynasty and the Aftermath guys. But to go to New York, it's just a long ways, right? And Magic's reached out a couple of times, and it's, I don't use the word no a lot, right? Like, it's not that I don't want to. I absolutely want to. It's just making it make sense with my life, my family, my kids, and finding time to get out there. But of course, I miss being around it. I've had other options too, other offers from other pro teams to go. And I mean, Tracy's been on me. Like, I'm totally okay if I never went back. Like, I really mean that. Like, I've done so much cool stuff, and as a player and getting to do it. But those guys, when Magic reached out to me after the last event and was like, we just need another guy to help. And it was like, they're my friends. Like, my friendships will always supersede somebody. If somebody offered me a ton of money or no money in friendships, I'll take friendships any day of the week because I just want to be around like-minded people. So that's kind of how that all transpired. And, their coaches they've had, Pat and those guys, and then Energy had a coach in there. Like, they all did a great job. I mean, for them to be 7-7, and I think, it's fair to say at the beginning of the year, they lost some guys, a month or month and a half before the season started. Tough time to lose people, right? It's very respectfully and saying for both of you guys, if you're going to lose guys at the end of the year, whoever they are, please tell me the day after World Cup so I can get through. Because, as coaches, we're also in that GM hat has to go on.
Right.
And some teams is a little bit different, right? Like, maybe it's a little different with Diesel. Mark's got to have a say in it or whatever. But, like, you still have a GM hat that Ryan has to wear. So, again, we're just going to say if Kyle Spicker retires from paintball, please tell me the day after World Cup, not, like we're about to go into the NFL season and you see guys retiring. And for all of us, you're thinking from the GM standpoint, you're like, you couldn't have fucking told me that before the draft.
Right. Yeah,
so I could have gone and got some people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the guys that we can get clearly have no great loyalty and are just mercs and are willing to jump ship for 2 cheeseburgers and a Chick-fil-A sandwich, right? So those aren't guys we really want in our organizations as is long term. Those are the 1-year deals, not the lifetime deals. So, yeah, I'm happy to be over. Like, I enjoy doing what I do. I think the Bears have done great this year. Watching some of the tape, I mean, your guys, Mike, were crawling down the middle of the field on them, and they pulled out a win in a one-on-one. I think they have a lot of experience. I think, that coupled with – and I think we're seeing a change now, right? As coaches, we are seeing a change in the game. The extra bunkers they've added on the field, we're no longer – I used to – like, at my leagues, I would sit at the start station and watch – it's always fun watching lanes go out, right? And you'd sit there and watch, and there was just tons of open lanes, and it was a different game. Us older, bigger, especially me, big and slow guys, there's no way I'm running through those lanes. I'm going to get chopped to pieces. Now, with all those bricks and wings in the middle of the field, and most of the layouts that Trozen and ourselves make puts those big bunkers from the 30-yard line to the 50-yard line. Because if we put them further back than that, it slows the field down massively, right? Like, if you were to put a wing laying down on each tape line, and 2 of Mike's guys cross up, you're just never coming through that, period, end of story, right? Yeah. So you have this wall of bunkers in different configurations that these younger guys, and like we watch the Russians play 11 points, you're watching younger players suddenly transcend the skill level. Like, we're just use Mouse, right? Mouse has a ton of skill. There's no doubt he is one of the greatest snake players to ever do it, period. Yeah. Let's not even debate that one. But now you have young kids out there that are decently fast, decently athletic, and have a lot of will and a lot of grit and a lot of moxie. And they're willing to go do it. And that is actually having results against a guy like Mouse, right? And again, we're taking 0% away from the great players in the game. Sure. It's just like every time the NXL adds more pieces, people want to throw stones. This is fucking horrible. This is stupid. Trozen asked me last year when I was with Diesel, he goes, what do you think about some more snake beams? And I'm like, man, it was the Philly layout where we had the double snake. And I'm like, well, do you need any more snake beams over there? And he's like, no, for the Dorito side of the field. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, if you make a bump from the 2 to the 300, guys are getting shot in the feet and the legs diving in there. So they can't make that move without a big risk. He's like, if we had a beam off of that would just protect that last foot of dive in. And you're like, yeah, in hindsight, that kind of works. Then we come home. I didn't know how many beams they were going to add, but we started putting beams, the academy kids that play out here that I help with, start putting beams over on the Dorito side, and it's like, yeah, now we can have a more balanced field where it's not just the snake side going down. So I think you're starting to see with these changes the NXL's made, and they've been very bold in making those changes, but clearly, in hindsight, they were the right changes to make. Younger teams have a better chance of just pulling out a win now, right? Like, if you can give Dynasty the ability to absolutely control a field, or Mike's guys to absolutely control a field, you're in trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's a throw punches field, I feel good with any team, right? If you're going to go get aggressive and you got some young guys that want to go throw some hands, even if you lose, you're in the game. You're not just getting controlled. You know, the older styles was more of that jiu-jitsu. They got the headlock, the elbow underneath your throat, and they just put you to sleep. You know what I mean? You see Damage losing to teams, and Damage's roster, top to bottom, is phenomenal. They're great players, but you get young teams, and even like your old guys, FSU guys, they're just out. They're coming. I'm not saying they're going to come the greatest, but boy, they are sending it every point. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And those young teams are being rewarded for it. So I think we're starting to see a bit of a change in how coaches now value and scout players, right? You look at guys like Ryan Hoskins that is having a great season. He's got to be the rookie of the year, in my opinion. And he's out
so
there
hard to get him. I tried so hard to get him.
Totally. And he's out there handling it.
I got to coach him in Europe last year, and I was like, dude, this kid is so close. He is so close.
Yeah, and it appears he has arrived.
He's ballsy. He's the player that as soon as like he comes back into the pit, he'll immediately ask about things like tempo over gunfighting. Did he pick the right shot first? Like, as a coach, he's the player you want, right? Like, and
Absolutely.
then you give him feedback and he goes out and fixes it. He doesn't make the same mistake twice. Like, he's very intelligent. There's a couple of things you mentioned. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't think young players right now in the current incarnation of NXL from D5 all the way up to pro, I don't know if they need 15 years of experience right now in order to make a big impact. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, they can make an impact right out the gate. But what they do have to do is put their 10,000 hours in, and they've got to be watching tape, and they need to be there at the first game to the last game, observing, absorbing, and emulating those styles that they're seeing. And yeah, I mean, we're seeing great things coming out of young players. And I think it's interesting for us coaches now in regards to the Bears situation is every coach has to ask themselves, what's the percentage of the OG guys, right? The older guys, and you have to have some of them. Those, even if the older guys don't play the greatest, they're the guys that hold the glue together on the team, right? They are the ones that keep it together. But what is the proper balance of young, hungry, athletic young players mixed with guys that can pull some things out if they need to pull some things out? So I think all of us are constantly retabulating, reformulating those numbers and trying to find the happy medium, you know what I mean? Like, and what can teams afford to do? Players. I mean, there's so many interesting angles that as coaches we all deal with to build our teams.
Yeah, and you said a couple things. Mike and I've had several conversations over the last few weeks talking about like the tempo and the way things are changing a little bit. And you said a couple, like reward is one of the things you said that I've said multiple times. Like, teams that are creating more choreography off the break that includes more risk, things like that, they're being rewarded. It's not necessarily about they won a tough gun. They were able to shoot a guy in the side. They never had to get in the 50-50 gunfight because they made a spot that you're not supposed to make. But because of all the bricks and the beams and the chaos that's been created with the bunkers are 10 feet apart now. You know, if you go back and watch old X-Ball videos, the bunkers were 20 feet apart. Like, you had to work your ass off to get to the next spot. You know, now.
And what I would compare it to is like the NFL, right? Like the old NFL, you sat in a pocket, you threw to receivers. Now you're seeing these quarterbacks that get outside of the pocket, and with the cameras that we have that are right behind them, moving with them, all of a sudden this guy gets out of the pocket, and now that tight end right there is open by a mile because he's more mobile. And what you're saying is, yes, by taking the 300 on the hot, now you come up, look inside, and there's a 2 or a 3 inserting up the middle of the field, you know, a Rainey level player or somebody, Jason Edwards or whoever, Yosh or something like that. And that guy's there in spot and catches him because he does the job he was told to do by his coach, and everybody else stays alive behind him. Now we have a body. Now we have another body. And
Right.
great players will still make great plays. Ryan Greenspan, you still are not happy when it's your 5 on his 2 and he's one of the 2, or Marcelo or whoever it is, because they tend to pull it out. But this day and age, by getting that kill, man, as a coach, it is the biggest sigh of relief for every coach in the league, from pro field down to Division 5, is when you get that first kill and we're 5 on 4, right? Like, okay.
Spot on. You use the analogy of the NFL, and I love that analogy. Another analogy, and we had talked about it earlier, is the UFC. It's like that jiu-jitsu guy. If you didn't, in mid 2000, if you didn't start adapting and start adding wrestling and jiu-jitsu to your stand-up, you were in trouble. You were about, that's just the simple fact. So one of the philosophies I kind of brought in, and you've already used it, Damage has done it a lot as well. But what we want to do is we want to pull guard, and we want to smother you to death, and we're going to choke you out. And now what you're seeing is you've got fighters out there, you've got teams out there that can throw haymakers, and you can get caught. You go for that double leg and you catch a knee. If we're going to talk about analogies like that, but that's kind of what we're seeing now, right? We've got that puncher's chance, that striker's coming out there against the wrestling or the jiu-jitsu guy, and it's a great matchup, and it could go either way. But the ring has a tendency in the UFC. The ring has a tendency to favor those UFC guys, but you catch us out in the middle of the ring and we don't have the cage. Oh, there's a problem, right? So I just love the analogy of football, and I wanted to throw something out there that I understood better than football, which is fighting. So,
and you see it with these young teams,
have
right?
all the fun, Mike.
You have a young team going up against like a more seasoned team, and all of a sudden the young team throws a punch, and you're like, wow, how is this fight going to go? It's going to go, Dynasty does this, Mike Hinman's going to do that, he's going to use his size or whatever, and then all of a sudden there's no wrestling at all. The guy's using leg kicks and throwing straight jabs, and you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming. And especially this current incarnation, I think the one thing the young teams make the biggest mistake on is sitting on their heels when they're up a couple of points, right? Yeah. If throwing hands is what got you up 2 or 3 points,
and keep throwing.
You must find a better hybrid balance of just 5 across the back to stop, because like the Bears versus the Hurricanes are up 2-0, and then you guys start coming at them, and now it's a tie game going into overtime and then into a one-on-one, right? So like at some point, young teams have to understand, what are we going to do today? Whether it's back in the 10-man days, or what is our identity? Are we a defense team? Are we getting up to the 50s and we're going to go trade and throw some hands? If that's what we're going to do, we have to agree upon it. We have to practice on it, and we have to go execute it. Yeah. All of us, right? No matter what your identity is.
Yeah. I think every team, and I get in trouble for this sometimes, and sometimes I don't, but I do believe that the minute it's a lot like the martial arts. We've been using this analogy, so we'll stick with it. Where the minute you say this is our style, you've limited yourself. I believe every team in paintball, and what we've seen so far this season, is every team has become adaptable. And that's why you're seeing this parity, because teams have decided, hey, we don't have to go one speed. We're not a defensive team. Hey, we're not an aggressive team. Hey, we're a paintball team, and we're going to play the way this field and our assets allow us to play it. And I think that's what you're seeing. I think you're seeing all these teams, to your point, you've got that mix of experience, you got that mix of new blood that's coming in there, and they're melding together, and bam, we're seeing some incredible action, and we're seeing some things happen on the field we haven't seen in a long time.
Which is how, when you first said, I think a lot of people thought the Bears season was going to be from somewhat of a rebuild. Anytime you change more than 10 or 20% of your team, you're in some phase of a rebuild now, in my opinion, right? Yeah, a guy here retires, that's not that bad. But when you're talking about 4 guys coming and going, 5 guys, whatever it is, it becomes a lot, right? You merge 2 cores together. Now you've got to find your identity. But if guys go execute the game plan, and that's a tough one for a lot of coaches, right? Like it's like Ryan's really had a tough season with it. I've been in his shoes, you know what I mean? And at some point, you have to, players have to understand, the buck stops with the coach. So just please do what I'm asking you to do at 100%. And I said this when I was with Diesel, and I'm sure Ryan is in the same mindset. If it doesn't work with what I'm saying, I will either change what I'm doing, or I will be the next one out the door. And I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that, because if I can't do anything to help you men, then it's time I'll bow out of the way. Like when I stopped coaching with Dynasty, we were winning breakouts. We were up every point, and we still couldn't win points. And it's like, man, maybe it's my time to just step back, let Rusty come in here, handle this. He did a great job. But it's completely counterproductive not to do what the coach has to say. Because if you have that big of an issue with what the coach has to say, we should have been talking about it last night at the meeting, not here on Friday or Saturday or whatever the issue is, you know? So it's tough. It's tough. It's tough to be a coach and to deal with the egos and the stuff like that, especially as we all get older and we realize that blonde hair is not blonde. It's actually gray hair now. And like the ego tends to go out. Yeah, right. Every time my head gets shaved, I'm looking at it like, dude, it's growing.
Sink is full of gray hair every time.
So just for Mike, you know what I mean? But, you know, the ego tends to go out the door for us, you know what I mean? And these younger guys, as we are all older now, we're looking at younger versions of ourselves and you're just like, man, you know, like take it down a notch, dude. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Just take it down a notch. Like, you know, trying to instill that wisdom upon them, even in losing moments. There's so much to be gained. You learn more losing than you do winning most of the time.
Especially in losing moments, right? Like we talk a lot about culture, right? You know, and it's made up of process, players, and purpose, right? Mm-hmm. And they've got to have, like, when I talk about process, players, and purpose, it's the process we put in place to get the players to all buy in, believe the same way, understand why we're doing the work. And then the purpose, they got to understand the why, right? And all the stuff you're talking about, for the Bears specifically, they did it relatively early, right? So they did have some time to kind of put the pieces together, figure out who we're going to have. Of course, we know that changed, and I think it was like 3 weeks before the season started.
A couple guys went to Revo.
Yeah, they lost 2 guys. Well, I think it was maybe one late and then one kind of 4 or 5 weeks in. I don't remember exactly, but they did have a little bit of time to kind of put that together. But like from a cultural, like team culture and feel and attitude and what their personality was going to look like, shit, you don't know that. Like you don't know until you get in the shit a few times, right? And then kind of figure out like how are we going to react together, who's going to blow up, and that we're maybe not used to seeing, right? Like maybe one of the Buftons comes in and, you know, blows up in the pit, and now they're trying to figure out how to deal with that. They handled the situation really, really well, you know, way better again than I think most of us thought they were going to. And it wasn't like a knock on them. It was just, if you've been around a long time and you've seen what those two teams tried to do, you've seen it fail over and over and over again. Right. And so, you know,
I think one thing that's failed for like the NRG guys is the dynamic of, and we've talked about this amongst the players, of how the field layout and the breakout, right? I think like Thunder before, and I'm not saying Thunder because they happened to sell the spot to them, but when Corey ran Thunder, I think that team was great at the 3 back, 2 up look. They were constantly 3 guns up, back, 2 guys up. And in the prelims, they beat a lot of teams. They were constantly 3-1, 4-0, but they would make Sunday, and it was a trouncing. I mean, it was 6-1, 6-0. Like, it was bad. None of the games were ever close that season. Like, it was just one-sided ass whoopings. So the tough part you have as a team, as a pro team, I think you can make Sundays constantly dropping 3 back and 2 up, right? Like 3 guns up across the back in those, you know, stand-up can, back center, something on the snake side that's large. Totally. 3 guys in those spots do well. But where you don't have it is like by watching the Russians against Shock, constantly running a guy up to that center 50, shooting through the doorway into that snake. If that center guy can trade with your snake 1 guy, now that leaves me 2 on the snake side against 1 other guy over there. And we know that's a very powerful spot of the field. That was masterful by them, right? They used a middle guy, a 2 or a 3 to go up there. And Sergey is not a small human being, but, you know, it was hard to shoot him going up there. And he would get up there. And if you can trade Sergey for you know, whether it's Clay or which one of Shock's front guys they were using, that's the trade. As a coach, you're going to take that trade all day, right?
Yep, all day.
If my receiver 100%. Can block down on that huge defensive end and stop him, that's a great block. You know what I mean? Yeah. Usually that dude just steamrolls him, you know? So that was a great thing that they did. And now for us, figuring out how far, you know, the Bears guys have a way of playing paintball. It's not hard to see. You can watch the tape at it. It was very defensive. And how far forward can we push that? And for every coach, right? Like, what position are you on place? I mean, they've got 9th, 10th, 11th, right? So we've got to be 10th place. Chances of us getting relegated, pretty slim, right? Like sitting in 10th now. So now it's short-term, long-term goal, right? You want to win every tournament. That's your short-term goal. Long-term goal is to build a championship caliber team. So for us, and again, you don't want to sound like you're giving up on the season. It's just we have to take a realistic, same with Ryan has to do this on his team, right? Mike, your team's pretty set, but you're always looking if you can upgrade one spot. I'm sure you're glad to do that. But just constantly taking stock of who are we going to have here next year? Who do we want to have here next year? And I'm not saying there's nobody on the chopping block. It's just, hey, listen, Ryan's a great quarterback and Mike Hinman's a great third string and Mike's a great second string, but fucking Tom Brady just became available. Mike, you're probably getting released today on waivers and we're all moving down a spot. And Ryan, you're not starting anymore. And you're like, oh, that's just the nature of the business. You know what I mean? Like what you've done yesterday means nothing tomorrow. Like you have to keep doing it. You have to keep, and from a coach's stand, it's never personal. I think it's, like with me, both you guys know me well. We've never had a bad moment. You know what I mean? I think people take me a certain way, but it's a business, right? Like definitely in your shoes, Ryan, with how much money Mark's spending, like it's a business, right? And at some point, this isn't about other people's feelings anymore. This is about what's our goal. Mark wants to win. That's totally okay. And to do that, this is what we have to do. So either people get in line with it, and there's no gray area there. You either get in line or you get the fuck out of the line. Like it's that simple. And that's where we're at with it, right? Like with the Bears, with Mike, Mike believes he has the pieces he needs. I'm not saying we don't have the pieces, and just until you got to go to some practices and go through the trenches. It's not an overnight thing. Like you said, you got to put some pressure on, and then you got to look through as a coach, you got to give the side eye through that pit and see how everybody's reacting to that pressure, right? Who gets hit in the fight and flight? Everybody's a tough guy, right? Everybody's down to fight until they get smacked in the mouth once, right? Like, and then you either see the crazy look in their eyes or you see people bounce up out. So, we've got to go through those and just work through. I mean, the good thing is with the Bears guys, they want to play a lot of paintball. Back in Virginia, they're always playing. So for us, kind of like with your guys, right, Mike, they enjoy playing paintball together. So I look forward to seeing what we can do with it. I mean, there's another part of it from my point of view. You could be like, man, I could come here and knock this thing completely off the rails from what they've already had going, right? But I think the other side of that is if you're struggling on Sundays, and a lot of teams do that, they make it into Sunday and then the upper teams get a hold of them and just crush on them. You have to figure out, sometimes you do have to take a step backwards to take two more steps forward, right? Totally. Like you have to have the pieces. And again, I hope me showing up, people understand that like this, there's no preconceived notion, much like when I got to Diesel or every other team I've been with, owning your own team becomes stressful. And at some point we've all done it. We've been the guy putting all the money in, and it's very tough in this league to be an owner, a coach, and a GM because you're talking with your heart. Now just being a coach is so much easier. Like when I was in Ryan's shoes, maybe I should have played Mark more. I might still be there, but you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, it was never personal for me. A lot of guys, we're afraid to make mistakes and we're afraid to do this. And it's like, okay, well, then you're still making the mistake by not making the mistake. I'm okay with mistakes in practice. I always say this, you didn't see me drive into practice in fucking reverse. That's just stupid. I'm not going to drive down the road in reverse. That's not trying something. That's just truly ignorant. But if you want to try something in practice, like if the Diesel guys come to you or your guys come to you and they're like, Mike, we're going to play an aggressive set, like way more aggressive than we are, but we want to find where I always say this to guys. How do you think Ford knows where to put the red line on an F-150? Because they blew 20 engines figuring that out.
That's right. They blew it up.
Every team needs to know where that red line is. So we know where, again, we're down 2 points with 3 minutes. We now know what we got to do. We've done this in practice. That muscle memory comes from doing this in practice and then coming back to it. And Mike did that when we were at LAX. Hey, man, we're going to do some situational. You're up 2 points this amount of time. And I'm like, man, you want to give us 2 points in 4 minutes? All right, brother, we can play this. You know what I mean? But going home from that, every time. Totally, you're like, man, that was really smart because now your guys have seen that. So when we get to the tournament and we're in that position, we're not like, man, what do we do? It should be very simple. We know what we do. We go here, here, and here. This is where we're going to get the kill from. So just working through things like that. And hopefully I can help bring things like that to the team and the experiences we've had. And that for a lot of us as coaches, that's where it really comes from, right? Like it's not 5 years or 10 years of doing this. It's decades of doing this. Like I was a 14-year-old kid. My dad was a machinist at Dye, and now I'm 44 years old. So, you know what I mean? It's 30 years of doing this and this seeing success and failure. And whether it's your team or other teams, you just watch it. I mean, everybody's watching. Everybody's watching what Mike did. Everybody's watching the shoes that you're in, Ryan, right? Like, it's okay to say it, right? Like Diesel, there's a lot of expectation. And that first event was just had to be a gut check. You know what I mean? Like you're coming home again. I've been in that camp recently and you're like, how in the did we get here? You know what I mean? But you know, that's the fight or flight. Now you're in it. And for a guy like yourself, you're like, well, fuck. Now we're fighting. You know what I mean? Like we got nowhere to go but up but here, but we have to figure this out. You know what I mean? And the other things that are never said about things like that is you guys have some tough brackets. You know what I mean? And as a coach, if you're not going to win the tournament and you're not going to get relegated, you're happy to have those extremely tough brackets because sooner or later, the team either adjusts to playing at that level or you catch a bracket that's not that tough where you're like, oh, we've got 2 pretty easy games in here. Thank you, Lord. You know what I mean? Because you guys have had some rough ones.
Yeah, but I always go into those incredibly grateful, right? Like I want those because I know if we make it out, we're in really good shape, right? Like you play well, you get through those teams, you got a good.
Dude, that's the bracket where you're like, if somebody comes out of here, they're probably winning this tournament.
Yeah, right. And we have been in that bracket. We've been in that bracket every time except the last one, right? But to go back kind of to your point about practice and making mistakes, because we talk about this quite a bit too. And in fact, one of the things I've been trying to get Diesel to do is make more mistakes. Like stop trying to play mistake-free paintball because number one, you're never going to play mistake-free paintball. And if you're practicing that way, we're going to fail. We're going to fail because you're not going to fail enough here for us to figure out where that red line, as you said, is. We're never going to know. Like, so stop fucking trying to play so conservative and go get busy. Go get busy. Make a shitload of mistakes here so we can document all that and go, hey, remember you did that at practice. It didn't work. Let's try this. Let's try this. Like getting the guys really comfortable and especially with each other. You know, you were here. You understand how they kind of talk to each other and get weird with each other sometimes when guys make mistakes. And I'm like, hey, stop. Like we need to make all those mistakes now. Make as many.
And for you guys, it's an interesting blend, right? Because you've got the original core 4, BJ, Ice, Clint, and Mark that are truly friends out of the field, right? And I think we'll be friends when paintball's long over. Then you have the guy, and Jesse too has now come back. He knows everybody. But then you got the guys that are flying in, Cody and Mouse and Kyle and others. And it's different with them, right? Now you have to figure out how to fit the homegrown with the mercenary style. And it's not like Mouse isn't down for the cause. I mean, he's all about Diesel. It's not like he's out here being his own person. He's all about it. But it's just getting the toughest part a lot of coaches have is getting the personalities in the lineup, getting all the dominoes to be in the same way. So when they all fall the same direction. You know what I mean?
For sure. Totally.
So it's
that culture,
tough, man.
right?
Culture, but also it's easy to be said it's male ego, right? Like, it is. It's some shit, man. Like dealing with men and their egos. And it's like, if you like, I always tell people, and I think people take it really wrong, but it's like, who's calling, Mike? Many people calling for you to coach their team? Then maybe we should just focus on what we're doing here. But a lot of these guys are so full of themselves, they believe they are the greatest thing since penicillin. You know what I mean? And like, they're not. And you don't want to burst their bubble, but you're like, listen, all that matters is what's right here in this room, right here amongst them. This is all that matters. But I mean, we see it, right? The social butterflies. They get to the event and that other personality comes out and it's like, So,
oh my gosh, I've been sitting here listening to you talk, Mike, and this is why I love talking to you. And I was so excited about having you on the show because I'm feeling a bit justified a little bit because I've kind of preached a lot of these things. And literally within the last 45 minutes, I think you've covered everything that I preach on the reg, which is accountability, goal setting, finding the envelope, right? Learning more from failure, culture emphasis, communication. This has been great. I feel
well, I mean, here's another one for young teams out there. Like, if you want to point a finger at one of your teammates, feel free to. Hey, Ryan, you did X, Y, and Z wrong. Cool. But before you do that, point out something you did wrong first.
For sure.
Just point out something you did wrong first, because now that ego is going to kind of pop and come back to reality. And we're not just always pointing the finger at Ryan and Mike's done no wrong. Admit what you've done wrong, because all of a sudden, within about 5 or 10 points, people stop pointing the finger at everybody else. And we just start working on what we need to do better, because a lot of the egos and the narcissism cannot handle calling themselves out. So they stop pointing fingers at the other guy. And we just start working on what we need to do better.
Yeah.
So that's another interesting one that I found amongst teams.
Yeah. Correcting with humility, right?
Yeah.
Correct with humility.
I mean? Like,
yeah.
And the tough part about paintball is it's usually after you take about 15 balls up the backside and people's blood pressure is about here. And trust me, I understand high blood pressure. But at some point, you know, we had a practice in Houston last year with Diesel, and one of my snake guys was going in on the rest of the team. And it's a kid I love. And I'm just looking at him like, brother. And for me, it was that moment of reality, right? Where you're like, man, if you're going at this level, none of these dudes are understanding you right now. Like the level that you're at, it's just too far. You know what I mean? I understand the passion. I really do. I've said it to Marcelo. I've seen him come in and get into it with Ryan or Skinny, like at a very high level. And I've said to Marcelo afterwards, we talk about it. And it's like, I don't think your message was wrong. I just think the delivery of it, you know, like two old friends saying, hey, mother, you know what I mean? And then coming at somebody like it's just how you say the same word with the infliction on it is the issue that a lot of teams run into, right? So, and I think players have to go do their job and let the coaches decide. You know, if I go do my job 50 times, or the Bears guys do, or the Diesel guys do, or the Hurricane guys do, at some point as coaches, we're going to see it like, man, that great player makes great plays and that guy doesn't. And that's okay. I'm not saying you can't play. I'm just saying when we get into these moments, we need to be very aware of the depth of our bench and our roster and our abilities. So I'm not sending you to the 300 when you can't make the 300. Yeah. Simple. But I think a lot of teams struggle with that honesty.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Ryan's and like, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Like it's tough. And you know, because you've come into, you've been a part of a lot of programs. And when you start dealing with the personality, and it's always interesting, especially right when you come into an organization, and I've had success with most of the organizations I've been a part of, but it's interesting that people think it should happen immediately. And I'm like, I don't even know these guys yet. Like still I'm 3 tournaments in, I'm still getting to know most of them. Like, I don't understand still all of what makes them tick, and you know, at what level emotionally do I need to get them to where they understand, like the red line, right? I want to get you to 6 because 8 is the red line. We're in the prelims right now, so I need you to be at a 6. I'm still trying to figure out how do I get this guy to that place and this guy to that place, because it's not all the same, right? It's different for everybody. And so, you know, I've obviously understood what I took on when I got here, but it is disappointing when you have this much talent and I still honestly can't touch it and go, yep, that's our problem. Yep, this is exactly what the problem is, right? I'll just turn that one knob and we're fine. Because I think there's like 10 knobs that need to be turned. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I think
it's
like 5 or 10% on every player, right? Everybody needs to find another gear. And, you know, for us, I don't need the rah-rah to find that gear. I don't need Oliver screaming in the video back in the day to get me up. I was never part of that. You know what I mean? I just personally didn't need that. But some guys do, and other guys need to be able to look at the guy next to them and be like, yeah, I remember like Tyler Harmon when he was with Dynasty, looking in his eyes. And again, he played for me on Aftermath when he was a lot younger. The intensity in his eyes, even for me as Mike Hinman, I'm like, man, if this dude right here says we're going to go some people up at the local bar, we're going. Like we're going. Like right now, grab some bats. You know what I mean? Like his level of intensity. So sometimes, right, when you feel that and looking around the pit, it's just everybody has to put in that 100%. I think with you guys, because I've been there, I don't think it's much. I don't think it's a complete restructuring of how paintball is played. I think it's just this one point, this guy went a little bit further, and that boost that Oliver used to always refer to, the boost, right? I'm boosting up and it's helping Ryan, and because everybody's playing good around you, it inspires others to do more. I think that's all it is. I mean, I can't imagine much more you can do. You know what I mean? It's tough. It's a tough part that you can truly, in this sport at this level, give 100% and come out of it with an 0-4 record and be sitting there like, man, no wins. Like, you know what I mean? It's deflating at points.
I left Vegas, and Mike can attest, I left Vegas questioning whether or not I should even be doing this. I was like, what is happening? This is horrible. Like, I've never gone to any event ever and not won a game, ever. In my 30 years of doing this as a player, as a coach, I've never gone, other than with Notorious in their rookie year, which is going to happen, right? I've never gone to an event and gone 0-4. Certainly not with a seasoned group. Even when I rebuilt Texas Storm and that went pro in that first year, we didn't ever go 0-4. We always won a game. Like, never went 0-4. So it was tough, man. It was rough.
Humbling.
Very humbling, right? Very humble. But also, like, on the backside of it, like, I'm so grateful for that experience now.
Oh,
right. So
because at the end of the day, if you don't get relegated, and we didn't win the tournament short-term goal, but we're not, because I think all of us as coaches have to keep that in the back of your mind. You don't want to be sitting in 19th or 20th going into World Cup, right? Because that's a whole different dynamic that you're playing for. But as long as you're not in that place, we're learning, right? Now, teams and team owners have to understand that this is a long-term commitment. I mean, even at the regional level, you see teams in Texas that have been brotherhoods that have been playing together for a long time. They are better than the little fast kids that are all-star teams that have been made up for a season, because there's something to be said about that continuity, right? Like 70-80%, that's always the number in my head that you would like to keep consistent from year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3. If you can do that, then we're not showing up to that first practice of the year with our sweaters on in the rain, figuring out who each other is. It's just we have a new guy or two, and we're kind of showing him how to do it, not rebuilding a whole program. And like Ryan and Mike both said, finding an identity. Who's the guy? Who's the explosive guy? Who's the voice of reason? Who's Silent Bob? Who's Jay? Who's who here? You know what I mean? So, yeah. And I think for a lot of the younger teams out there, as long as they stick on their path, stick to it when times get tough. I mean, there's so many things you can say about that in life, right? Like, we are all tested, but those who are tested are the ones that can stand the test, right? Like, the Lord doesn't test the ones that can't work their way through it. You just have to, I mean, sometimes in life we all get there, and I'm sure, like Ryan said, you're questioning yourself, but then you have to stop and be like, listen, I've been here. And at worst, even if Ryan, you shouldn't have been there in Vegas and you didn't have what it takes, you're going to learn very quickly from it, because being in that position, it gives us we talk about the windows, right? It puts us out of our comfort zone into a window where we absolutely can, and we just have to evolve. I mean, like, for me as a coach, I'm always listening and evolving, right? I tell that to the young players: 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk, because when you talk, I can't learn. I'm down there in Louisiana, just like, hey, Mike. Oh shit, that's smart right there. You know what I mean? Like, I have no problem with, like, but you learn so much. I think if a young team could take every coach in the NXL, all 20, whoever they are, whatever their names are, and bring them in for 1 weekend, could you imagine how much you would learn? Like Rich Telford.
So much.
Did I go to Rich Telford for one-liners all day? Like, he gives me so much knowledge, or Maddie, or whoever it is. But I think no matter how great you've been in the game, you just have to keep humble with it and just be listening and think, where am I at the height of my game, or could it get better? And for me, I believe I can always be better. So if I'm taking in, I can always become a better coach and do a better job. I mean, you watch guys like Bill Belichick that worked his way out of the league. Do I think Bill Belichick's an amazing coach? Absolutely. Do I think his delivery might have been a bit antiquated and wasn't more with the times with his players? I think Bill Belichick would probably tell you that now. The roast on Tom Brady, I mean, they were all giving it to Bill. You know what I mean? Like, and you just don't have to be that guy sometimes, right? Like, totally. So it's interesting. It's being a coach in this game has definitely given us all a lot more than we ever realized. But that's another life lesson, right? You don't realize till it's all over how great it really is. So just keep learning and adapting.
Well, I'll tell you that the game and the league is in a much better place having you back and being a part of it.
I appreciate 100%.
That.
Yeah, you're talking.
I love the game. Yeah. I wish I had 3 of me at the events to go help my friends on the divisional fields, and just absorb it. And it's so cool, right? Like it's paintball.
So
you know, I say this like WC, it's hotter than blazes out here, but I'm pulling into ASG and I say it to everybody, all my guys out there. It's like, man, this is the one place when we pull through, like all the bullshit in life just waits out for us at the gate, right? It's going to be there when we leave. Life's lessons are still going to be there, and bills and negativity will be there. But when we show up to the paintball field, and especially to the NXL, we kind of get to be kids again, right? Like I'm not saying it's Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, but it's pretty much the golden ticket, dude. Like it's pretty cool. You know what I mean? And when you've been outside of it and back inside of it, it's fun. It's paintball, you know? And when people get to a point where they're not having fun with it like that, that's when you know you've probably made a mistake. Somewhere along the line, you've gotten a bit off course and we got to get back to it. Just having fun playing paintball. A 50-50 game plan will work better than a 100% game plan if everybody believes in the 50-50 game plan and they're excited to go execute the 50-50 game plan, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you were talking about.
I'm just sitting here smiling because all this is so awesome. I'm just like,
you're talking about listening and learning. You know, Mike and I talk about how lucky we are all the time, right? Because every week we have different coaches come on, and we just get to learn. You know, getting to get people's perspective. There's a video of you out there talking about emotions and what happens to players as they go on the field. I think it went viral, right? And I've used that several times, especially with young players. I'm like, hey, you guys, the more uncomfortable situations you're in, the more that will go away. But the reality is it never goes away. Like I still get a little nerve before, even as a coach, before a match starts, I still get, is my game plan right? You know, are the lines correct? Have I practiced enough? Have we done the right drills? You know, I still get that little bit of butterfly thing that happens. But as soon as the horn goes off and the point starts, it's over. That's gone.
Absolutely. Because for us as coaches, we were once players and we stood at the end of the order line, right? Like the orders came down, we went and ran the game plan, but now we're a step removed from it. We have players on one side, the game on the other side, and our game plans, and we must lead these men, and they must have blind obedience to our game plans, and they must trust in us to go execute what we are saying at a very high level. So for us, it's definitely humbling. And like Ryan said, you're always like, I'm leading these guys into battle. Hopefully I'm not leading them to a slaughter. You know what I mean? But like, also I'm the first one willing to go run through that wall with you guys. So let's go get it. You know what I mean? I think that's a moment for all of us. Yeah. I don't know if it's anxiety or butterflies or just the moment. It's a great moment to be able to stand in. And, you know, in a season, you get 20 prelim games, right? So every one of them means so much. And like Ryan said earlier, it's great to play tough teams because I'm playing Dynasty or whoever it is. Those household names now we are part of. It's always humbling, you know what I mean? But also there's something to be said at when you're throwing hands at that level, you know what I mean? Like this isn't slap boxing with your brother in the backyard. This is playing for all the marbles, right? Like these guys will put you down quickly with a mistake. And it's awesome. It's the height of our game. So it's cool to be a part of it. And I think it's cool for all the players out there, right? Like so many of us are so accessible now. I don't think, you know, there's a lot of great coaches that are not elitist D-bags, right? Like they're all good people that they're willing to talk. Like, you know, Mike's out at his local field or Ryan's down at USXBL. You know, I look up and he's there at event 2 and it's like, hey man, how the fuck are you? Like, you know, while he replaced me at that place, like Brian and I have always been friends. Like, man, come on up, like tacos, anything you want. Like, it's cool to see it that we're getting to a place in paintball where like, I feel like that camaraderie and that brotherhood is really slowly, not fast enough for me, but we're seeing a lot better people out there. And I think it's very accessible for these young teams to be able to reach out. And like guys like yourselves are putting so much free data out there. You know, when we were coming up to the ranks, it just wasn't out there, right? There was a DVD that we would watch or a VHS that we could watch, Jawbreaker or something like that. But there wasn't this like where guys are in the comments asking questions and it's very accessible. So it's good time to be a young player in the sport and a young team in the sport because you look at, you know, the Hurricane guys. I mean, dude, they didn't just become a pro team. They became a pro name. You know what I mean? Like they showed up and showed out and it wasn't once and it wasn't twice because it was something they built. And if anybody can't be happy, like even if I'm not there and I see them doing good, I'm like, That's good for paintball right there. You know what I mean? Like those are good dudes. You know what I mean?
You
If
should.
anybody ever gets a chance to go to LAX and see those guys, it's worth doing.
You should have seen in Las Vegas that finals match. And again, this is not a shot at Dynasty. This is not like, I'm not saying nobody wanted Dynasty to win, but I can tell you that the majority of the people who were standing back there were rooting
Absolutely.
for the Hurricanes, right? Just because of the story.
And I'm Dynasty through and through. They taught me so much. But the second the Hurricanes went in there, everybody in the world's like, doesn't matter if Dynasty wins 102 or 103 events. We'd love to see the Hurricanes win this one. They can go right back to winning right after this.
Right.
But absolutely, I think I don't think anybody on the other side of that is wishing against the Hurricanes. It's kind of like, man, if the Hurricanes win this, that is an amazing story. And if Dynasty wins it, it's just business as usual. But if Hurricanes win this, like this is good for paintball because these guys started from the bottom and now they're here. You know what I mean? So
well, God bless
that day will
Thank
come.
you for those kind words. Thank you for those kind words. You know, it's funny because, you know, I have to say this, my guys deserve all the credit. They worked very hard to be there. They listened, they executed everything well. They were the ones pulling the triggers. So I was really proud of them and that'll never change. But I do have a story that I have to share.
There is no coach that has the Sixth Man of the Year award like you do. You have an absolute. You are literally the puppet master on those guys, and I'm not saying that they're not. They truly though. Everybody out there in the comment knows that this is true. Your ability to get what's inside of your head to your mouth, because that's the biggest issue with human beings, right? We don't deals in 1 and 0s like computers do. So there's a lot for interpretation. But what you say to your men gets through to them in very few words at a very high the absorption level from you to your men. I cannot think of the last time, I mean, we saw a coach and a group of men as players be able to connect on that level. Because to be totally honest, going into the year, when you guys first came in, to be fair with you, not many of your guys would have been starters on many other pro teams. I love all your guys. I have nothing but respect for them, but they weren't household names yet. Now they are becoming household names. And if for some reason the team decided to hang it up, many and all of them would get calls from somebody because of the work and the 10,000 hours you're putting into being the pros. But when you guys went into it, your guys listened to you. I tell you what, if Ryan's guys listen to him at that level or my guys listen to me at the level your guys listen to you, our ranking will go up very quickly. I'm not saying we're going to win every tournament, but your guys listen to you at a level. For me as a coach, doing this for 30 years as a player/coach, I cannot think of one time ever that a group of players have listened to their coach and believed in that man's words as much as your guys listen to you. That is period. Put a period at the end of that.
You're incredibly kind. You're incredibly kind. And I got to tell you, you know, you made a comment about, you know, running through a wall for a guy, and I would run through a wall for my guys. And it's that simple.
No doubt about it.
They give me a call and where we got to bury the body. Let's go. You know,
listen, your guys are class acts. No doubt about it. We went down there. There was not one bit of drama at that practice. But listen, I'm known for being a pretty outspoken and aggressive human being at times. That is one house when I walked into, I realized we did not want any of that energy. If like, I'm already thinking, if one of my guys blows his gasket, I'm going to shut this dude down before one of these dudes shut this dude down, because you guys aren't just a team. It's a brotherhood at LAX, right? Like it really is from top to bottom, whether it's you guys or Team 13 or all the way down the pipeline. You realize if you come here with a problem, you're going to leave with a bigger problem. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just how you guys are. And but it's tribal warfare, and that's how it should be, right? Like it's nothing against the other team. It's just a bunch of men truly having each other's backs, and that helps.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's culture, right? And that it's so important. And yes, sir. I'm gonna shut up because I don't know what to say right now.
Yeah, and I apologize.
It was a cool place to go to. It was a cool place to go to. You guys cooked for us. It was amazing. I'm down there like, fuck, I'll eat all this food. Can I take some leftovers with me? I'll take it on the plane. Mike's sitting in first class, just like Pooh Bear, just fighting it down.
So good. Yeah, Drew can definitely throw down.
Oh,
he can throw down.
Can. Absolutely.
And I apologize.
Great people.
We normally have, so the show right now is just on Facebook. We just moved pages from the Major League Paintball. So Major League Paintball just rebranded their page to Major League Paintball Plus, and then Go Sports rebranded their page as Major League Paintball. They moved us from Plus to Major League Paintball, and it did not work. So it's not on YouTube right now. So our audience is about 1/10 of the size normally. So
there could be nobody out there. I just enjoy hanging out, talking paintball.
But this has been such a great episode. We've got to get this out
tomorrow. Yeah, we'll get it
you've thrown so much gold,
Mike. I'll throw it on a Spotify right away. I normally wait, but I'll throw it up right away. But nonetheless, like, I have so many questions here that I didn't get to, and I'm so happy I didn't get to them because it would have derailed the conversations we were having.
Right.
I do want to ask one question though about. Actually, I have a couple. So, at this point, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, second largest league. Mm-hmm. Did you say in America? Because I think it's the world.
In the world.
You're the second largest league in the world with the WCPPL. And then I think the USXBL is third, right?
MVPS in Florida is third size. I don't know if we're fourth or whatever. We just look at all of our numbers as one big conglomerate. WC on its own is, but USXBL is doing better than years past.
So I've been to the WCPPL. It was amazing. Maybe the most competitive regional league I've ever seen, ever. I would have to go back to like the GTS days when all the Texas teams were really good to think of one that's even close. And we would have, there'd be 6 to 7 good teams in the higher division. Like you have, if there's 12 teams that sign up for that premier division, they're all good.
Yeah, we have 18 coming into this one.
All good, right? And they'll be good. By far the most competitive paintball on a regional level I've ever seen. And then I came down to the USXBL for 2 reasons. One, you put that layout up, and I was like, I just want to see how it plays. Like, I want to go down, see how it plays. I don't have anything going on this weekend. I can go be a paintball fan. And so I drove down, and I've been to Paintball Fit with other tournaments going on. And oh my God, man, like it was so professional looking. You had those white tents all over the place. Like it looked like larger than what the MPPLs used to be. Certainly more classy. All the fields were well ran. The reffing was really good. I think Ryan does a fantastic job with the webcast. I wish more leagues would get on board with doing that. Your webcast that you do, that Ryan helps with, is so good. Like
Ryan runs it completely. Ryan Polito, that's him. Which anybody can reach out to him on webcast. He's helped the Fit guys. Yeah, we've all been regional players. We all start somewhere. And listen, it's okay to say every team wants to play the NXL. I don't take that personal. I don't. I'd love to drive a Ferrari to practice. I just don't have the money to do it.
Right.
So I drive my Dodge Ram or my Tesla to practice. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's okay that teams want to go to the top. That doesn't bother me. The reality is far more Fords and Chevys and Toyotas are sold. So that's the market I focus on. When we went into Texas, Steve and Greg, USXBL was in a rough spot. Texas was a logical one. Arizona and New Mexico don't really have much going on. Colorado's not a huge market. So Texas was the next one. And, Steve and I go way back to when I was a kid. We knew each other. We lived together at Aaron Carter's house when my dad and him worked at Dye together. So it was very easy for me to go talk to him. He was on his way out. He actually bought the gun company that my dad worked as a machinist at in Sturgis, South Dakota, out of the blue, right? So we bought that. And our goal with that is just to help build the region up. Fit does a great job with the XTPL. Our goal was to be more regional and help bring teams up. I think we're in a tough spot right now. Like I said, the economy, every manufacturer is feeling it right now, right? Like in a level we haven't felt since probably 2008. Like it's pretty rough times, but we're still growing and we're still seeing new teams. I think, for paintball, as much as we're focused on the top end and this ESPN thing, I really think our industry must focus on the new players, and there has to be some serious energy sent down there. Because I think, everybody's focused on D3 and D4 and these, mid-level divisions that have been around for a while. and I say this all the time. When we run events here at ASG, there's a net. One side's a tournament side, one side's a walk-on side. And it's like a fishbowl. There's these kids standing there with high-end guns that are playing walk-ons. And I think they want to come over to our side. And I think as a sport, we've gotten a lot better at not destroying those players. You know, back in the day, the Texas Storm days, if you will, guys are out there with Timmies on D-bounce 0, just eating people alive at 23 balls a second.
Yeah.
Now we've gotten at a point where these guys, it's not as crazy, but still it's not, if you have to play against a D5 team, you're going to get mollywomped, right? So building something where the first level, the first year into paintball, we're protecting these players, right? Like they are playing against their own, like, you know, another one, young guns, like, oh my goodness. We got kids out there that are 14, 15 that should be on developmental squads for our pro teams. And then we have new young players. We need those new young players to play against other new young players where nobody's got an edge on winning and they just win because somebody made a better shot than the other person, not because they're leaps and bounds better than them. And and then if it's D5 X ball, like even we're allowed 2 of the next up. There's guys in D4 that are our age, like we're all going to drop back to D4 soon, right? If we don't ever put on a roster, we're all exactly. You have no right, nor do I, playing in D5 X ball, right? We are still good enough to run circles around those guys. But just us as a sport protecting those first year or 2 of players and getting them into the game, because we here in our industry, we're not selling gear right now. Well, of course we're not, because D3 and D4 guys own every gun, right? They've already done this. They're not going to go buy new gear packages. We need new players coming in, and it really befuddles me that our industry cannot see that, you know, if a guy goes from Diesel to the Bears to the Hurricanes, they're going to use whatever gear they have to use, and it's free, and they got pro guys selling guns. Why are we doing that? We should be able to pull up to every major regional league, and Eclipse and Lux and whoever else should have 3 tester guns out there, where if you want to pick up that gun and go shoot it, because when I was a kid, if I got to shoot an auto mag with a splash accent kit on it, probably would have bought one. You know what I mean? Because it would have been cool. If we go to the Supercross, there's going to be a fat boy Harley sitting there that we can go sit on. And Mike and I might be like, yeah, we need to go spend 30 bands on one of those. You know what I mean? But I think as a sport, we have to start focusing on that to help grow this thing.
And who do you like? Whose responsibility? Because I get this a lot, and I agree with you. I don't think there's near enough marketing done in the right way to bridge the gap for those players to, number one, understand and know that it's available to them. But then number 2, how do we transition them from one to the other? And then whose responsibility is it? Like who does?
I mean, I think it's both the industry, because they have the most to benefit, the field owners, right? And if you have a regional league that comes to LAX or to Oklahoma or wherever you live, they have to work together. I think, unfortunately, we've seen a decline in numbers across the years. And I think a lot of field owners, and Ryan, you've been a part of a field, they've seen the numbers drop out of it. So I think a lot of people are looking to make money for dinner on Sunday night, not looking a year down the road on how we're going to cultivate these young players to become the next level of players that are going to fill up through our ranks.
So I owned a field for 6 years. I didn't have an airball even available at either one of my parks until 4 years in. Like I had no airball. It was all church groups, birthday parties, like
and paintball's still fun doing that.
Yeah. My whole philosophy though was I don't want that yet. I want to build up when I bought the field, it did 220,000 the year before I bought it. The next year we did right at $500,000. And then I added the other field. The year I sold it, we were on track to do like $1 million. And I had added an airball at that time and we hadn't figured out, it was the same old guys, like literally, and that's really why I didn't want to do it. It was the same guys that were playing tournament style paintball somewhere else, just ended up coming to my place to play tournament style paint. It's not like I got new consumers, new customers to make that transition. It was the same old guard. They just moved to my place from somebody else's, right? Which is exactly what I didn't want.
So what we're now seeing, the numbers I'm being told, again, I'm not an industry guy on that level, is that we're not seeing as many Tippmann sales, right? Now we're seeing mini inverts, and we're seeing electronic low-end electronic guns that guys, or Eclipse's low-end platform that they're coming in with. but those guns can now compete on these tournaments. And again, it doesn't have to be X ball. It can just be like our 3-on-3 that we do D6 at our events is just 3-man, 3-on-3. You play 8 teams, 1 point, done. That's what it is, but it gets them in there. So I think that's on everybody. I think the field owner has to be cognizant of it. I think they have to be aware of where are we going to be in a year or two, right? We can't have this tournament thing like an upside down triangle where the point is at the bottom and that's D5 and D6 and we have all these upper level players. Like we're wondering why. I mean, I heard of a pro team that got their sponsorship and they're a top level team that's won in the last 2 years. This lost their deal because, some things happened in Florida that, there's not a lot of money out there. If it doesn't make sense, if we don't double, triple, quadruple, whatever it is, the size of the pie, how can all the rest of us at the top of the game expect there to be any kickbacks coming up? Like, I owned a paint factory. It costs $20 to make a case of tournament paint or more, plus shipping, plus everything else involved. It's not like I think that's the biggest, misconception is that a case of paint costs less than $10 to make. There's no world that anybody is, not even in China, making it for that cheap. Not even with vegetable oil out of a deep fryer that made 3,000 wontons. You cannot do it. Like I'm telling you, it can't happen. So I think it's got to be the field owners have to be part of it. I think the regional leagues, like for us, we have the time on Sunday where, APBA is like, you can be done with this field by noon. Well, okay, now we can squeeze some 3-man games in there. And I think it should be free, to be totally honest with you. I think if a case of paint is $40 or let's say $40, it should be $120. You get 3 cases of paint when you show up. It covers your $40, 3 cases. Why wouldn't we do that?
I love
like, why wouldn't we? And again, these people are already players, most likely, that are just coming across to play this. Now they can become part of it. And hey, Ryan, hey, Mike, hey, whoever it is, they see us out there because at every USXBL, WCCPL, the pros are there. Now we're all there knocking shoulders with each other and we're all part of this. And they realize that Mike and Ryan are cool-ass dudes that we can just talk to and we have something in common. Now we're part of this community and the culture that we're building. I mean, we've seen it. We literally saw in San Antonio a 3-man team. FSU had a team. They were 2 weeks before, they were all airsoft players. Never played paintball. Mark Franz, Mark Franz, he's crazy as shit, but he's a good dude and he means good for the sport. It's okay. Mark knows he's crazy, but he got these guys to come over. They got a 3-man entry in a charity raffle. We donated because I believe a player broke her leg. Mark won it. So he went and got 3 airsoft players. They win the tournament. And these guys you're talking to, they're like, we've never even played paintball. We're just over here playing. The third place team was a bunch of mechanics that do Black Hawk repairs at the local, I don't know if it's Air Force or Army or what base it is there. And they were like the gear motor heads or something like that. They were the mechanics for that. And they're like, so I heard one of them say, hey, we're in the round or whatever. He was calling back to base to let him know he's going to be a little bit late to base so he didn't get in trouble. But like we have really new players coming over. If we have 20 teams, 3 or 4 guys a team, that's 60 to 80 players that could buy a new Lux or a new whatever. Because once we make this important in our lives, especially in this American culture, once something becomes important, we find a way to do it, right? Whether it's whatever new fad that we're going to be part of, we do it. But I think it's got to be everybody getting together. And I think there needs to be some sense of urgency on it as an industry, right? Like we really need to focus on how can we make this barrier to entry as cheap as possible. But again, we don't want to go after people that will never be able to afford this. They need to be paintball players. WCBL, we do events at Ambush, not far from ANS. You know how many times ANS has ever come to my event? 0 times. Why? Because ANS is the largest online retailer. They could give up less about tournament paintball. Because I think for every 100 high-end guns, less than 50 of them are sold to us tournament players. Higher percentage are sold to walk-on players. So we now know we have the people out there. We just have to figure out how to convert them over to this side. And I think we will see a bumper crop growth. I really do. I really think we're going to see it. But I think everybody, and the first one to do it was MSXL. Aaron up in the Midwest, he started D6 3-man. And we did it 2 years ago. The number we know to be true is over 50% of those players will become D5 X-Ball players next year. So if we have to give 500 entry fees away to convert 50% over, I don't see how to everyone this isn't like Ray Charles can see this one. Like it's very clear to see, you know what I mean? But it's difficult because a lot of field owners and a lot of people want to make money right now and they have bills. And again, I'm not knocking them. They have bills to pay. But our more successful business owners in this sport, especially fields, are now doing, like Ryan said, church groups, birthday groups. Good. Those are never going anywhere. But we also have airsoft. And then we have an airball field. Now we have multiples, and we have gel blasters, right? Gel blasters are great. Little kids can go out there and just rip each other apart and not get hurt. That's great. Now we get them in. But there's something in our DNA, men and the women in our league, that when we cock this thing back and we start shooting, like there's something we want to see splats on people. And there's something like when you pick up a gun for the first time and you shoot somebody, there's nothing better than that. Watch that dot range into somebody. It's fun, right?
Yeah.
So just my opinion, that's what we have to do. And if we do that, you're going to see a lot of leagues start to grow. And I think, Ryan, you've been around it. Mike, you've been around it. Like, greed becomes an issue. You never want to tell somebody else how to run their business, but there becomes a point of just common sense, right? When I can go online and find a case of paint for $35 or $40 and a tournament wants to charge $70, especially in a format that requires a lot of paint, it becomes very cost prohibitive for teams to be able to afford that. So I think we must, as a community, figure that out on, and same, Brian, you owned a field, right? At some point, this guy, Mike, and his son, Bryce, over here, or Colin, are going to get older and older, and they're going to either age out of this, we're not going to see them anymore. So how do we still make some money off of them, not, just let them leave the sport and not be part of it? Because a number I heard from Giovanni that runs SC Village, which he is the largest paintball field guy in America, when somebody becomes a tournament player, the number he gave me was like 17 to 20 times a year they play paintball. A walk-on player will play 2 to 3 times a year. If at that, a tournament player will play 17 to 20 times a year. So if we want to talk about consuming paint, consuming the consumables, lenses, all the things down the line, we need to figure a safe way to convert them over to that, but also not run them out, right? And we hear like the points thing. APPA is going to rank everybody out. That is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Like, those points are super important, because the one thing you don't want is Ryan Gray, Mike, and Mike Hinman in D5 X-Ball playing against new players. We need a safe place for them to play. Totally. And there are people, we've had people in our leagues that have sandbagged down to D5 just to win some money. You know what I mean? So again, make it cheap, lower your prizes down so you're not paying people to sandbag at the bottom, and make good events for people. It's entertainment, right? We have to be entertained.
Did you do a class at the summit? I was
just going to ask that. I was just going to ask if you would join us.
I think I dropped too many F-bombs for people, so they never asked me to show up.
I think we got to figure out a way to make that happen. Because I think there's a lot of field owners, right? Like, one of the things that I've always, not always, but since it's really become a thing in the last 10 years, field owners don't do one-offs anymore, right? Where they just throw a tournament. And when I came up playing paintball,
USXBL, we're going to do that next year. We are going to give field owners in Texas and the surrounding areas the ability to throw their own tournaments that are USXBL sanctioned. They'll be able to get the medals that we get from the guys up in Oklahoma, the USXBL cut medals. They'll be our medals, whatever our cost is. If they're $5 and change or $6, whatever we pay per medal is what you'll pay. The field owner is going to keep the money. The field owner can sell whatever paint they want. We're not playing politics with this. They can play 2 events at your field. They get 50 points for participating. It doesn't matter if they win or lose. They just get 50 points for playing. They come play 2 USXBLs, any of them, championship, whatever, and they can be in a running next year. That way, because again, there's layers to this, right? There's the local level, there's that regional level, and then there's the national level. Like Tom Cole. Tom Cole gave me the dates 2 weeks before World Cup. I had him. And he goes, here's my dates. Here's what I'm doing. We didn't run a WC until after Vegas. Vegas is one of the biggest events. I think Vegas was on part to be a big event as is, because it was Vegas, right? Everybody wants to go to Vegas. It makes sense. But we didn't undercut them. And a lot of regional leagues, okay, well, they're coming here. Let me go 4 weeks before them. And if I help Tom get 10 more teams, it's $28,000 more on the bottom line that helps them continue to grow this thing. I think people have got to stay in their lanes, right? Like, so many promoters want to be the next big guy. They want to be that guy. And then, at some point, for us to do this, we need the local field to be pushing what we're doing, and then we need to be pushing up to the top level. And if we can all work together with that, it works. But when one guy wants to be the guy and put the crown on his head and do it for his ego, it just doesn't work well. But that's why our numbers, I mean, I actually got off the phone with Billy Saransky today about another league that's going to come back in Texas saying that we're not growing. I don't know how you say that, because our 3-man, you go down there, there's a ton of new players down there. Like, there's legitimately a ton of new players coming in. So we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We do it at WC. We do it there. Hopefully next year, I mean, I know at World Cup, there's going to be some big conversations with the field owners that we're with on like, hey, you got to help us a little bit. Because we, as a regional league like WCPL, we pay more money per event to the local fields than the NXL pays for any of their venues.
Wow.
To run a regional league. Like we absolutely, well, look at X Factor. They've had 2 fields for how long? They got 3 now, right?
Right.
Like there's a 3rd X-ball field now. So we help that local infrastructure. So that's our goal, right? And I'm not knocking Tom. I love Tom. Anything I say here is the same thing I say to him on the phone or when we see each other face to face.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, for us, we, when the NXL sets up and tears down, there's nothing left for the local community, right? That's just the business model they run. For us, I don't want to run that business model. I want Alex Martinez to have 3 fields. I want Fit to have 4 fields. I want LAX to have 3 fields. And I want them to have the business to support those fields. Because like you hear at X Factor, when X is playing, it's just 1 field and all those teams, the Titans, great team from down there, Jackpot, Gunners, all the big dogs down there, there's 12 of them on 1 field. It just becomes more than they can do. So now there's 2 fields. 6 teams per field is a whole lot better than 12 teams per field, right? So we're helping to grow the game that way. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, it's
and
great.
I feel
So
bad
much
for
more
those
than a
guys.
hashtag.
I'm down there. Yeah, but if we can continue to do that, and I think that's like you asked to your question, who's the onus on to help? I think it's got to be a little bit with everybody, right? Like I think in this day and age and our society and our politics and our bullshit, we all are going further this way. When in all reality, no matter where you are, we all need to take a step back towards the center. And, I'm at the hospital with my mother-in-law today, and you're looking around and you're like, man, none of this nonsense in our world that we buy into matters here. These people are like clinging for life. You know what I mean? And like sometimes life throws you those weird perspectives where you stop and you're like, hey, man, you know what I mean? But we all got to really try to work together to grow this thing, because I have no doubt paintball will grow. I have zero doubt. It's fun. When your end product is fun, it's going to grow. It's all the nonsense that comes between it and the politics that come into play and people doing it for the wrong reasons. I think that becomes an issue. Agreed.
Well, my point is I think there's fear, right? Like I think a lot of the local field owners who maybe they want to run a tournament, but they don't know how to do it. Like they don't have enough experience. And so I think there's some fear around trying to do it. And then also, and the way you're doing it is perfect, right? You're partnering with these fields so that they can be a branded thing, right? Which automatically gives it some credibility, which is awesome, right? Because if I'm just Ryan's backyard paintball and I'm throwing a tournament, I'm going to get 4 teams, right?
Totally.
I'm going to get 4 teams that are going to sign up, and I'm going to lose my ass, and I'm never going to do it again. So I think
if you're giving away an entry fee and you're not promising $10,000, you're not going to lose your ass. And if you want to do it on the pallet field that you got, rock out. It's 3-on-3. We're not telling you how you have to run it. Now, when they come over to ours, they may come back with some ideas, but also to any local field or local league that needs help, if you hit me on Facebook, Instagram, any of those, I respond quickly. If you need help, there's referees like Bobby, Alicia, some of these refs, they ref up at the EXL. Like their cost is very minimal for what they bring to the credit, and they're NXL level guys. They're NXL certified refs that you can bring in to help grow your business. You know what I mean? And again, it is on the field owner. If it's a very small field, you're going to have a hard time having 20 teams. But if you have fun with something, man, I'm watching my stepson plays, and he's pretty goofy playing. He's never really played a lot of paintball, but he's out there because he's playing against other players that are at the same level. And they're just having fun, right? They're shooting their guns. There's something fun about letting that trigger rip. You know what I mean? Like, the more bullets that come out of the end, balls that fly out of the end of that gun, the more fun we're having. You know what I mean? And then afterwards, you're talking, you're shooting the shit. But, that's the fun of paintball. Yeah, like I'm. If anybody needs help, please reach out. We have such a great product. We just absolutely need to work together on being, a negative mind can never yield positive results. We all must stay positive and help each other grow, right? And anybody that needs help, I mean, I've driven my scoreboards. My scoreboards sit at Fit to help them out for their events. Like, I just leave a set of scoreboards out there. There's fields out there. If you need help, call us. We have no problem helping the local community grow. In Texas and California, we're with it. That's what we all have to do, and that's my part, right? So hopefully I can help the next level do it, right? And there's a lot of great human beings in this sport. It just, we got to get together and get on the same page and really start kicking the ball towards the goal.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of why I asked the question that I did, and the way that I asked it is like, because I think you are somebody who's helping to drive the thing forward. And and the message that you're sharing it in the way that you're sharing it needs to be broadcast in a way that can be marketed to other MSXLs and even Jake with the EXL, where they start to understand, like, okay, in order for my series not only to grow, but to be sustainable, I got to have teams in 10 years. If I plan on being here in 10 years, I got to have teams in 10 years. So in order to do that, I've got to help with the conversion process, right?
Absolutely. That's just having beginner. And I think the problem with it is when you run an X-Ball event, right? Like, say we go to LAX and we do X-Ball, it's $400, $500, $600, and they're going to shoot 20 cases of paint. I think for a field owner, they look at it and it's like, man, we're going to make a decent amount of money on this. The problem is the 3-man team shoot 5.2 cases of paint. There's the big secret, right? 5.2 is our number. Yeah. Like, we're constantly crunching those numbers. If you're not going to sell a lot of paint, right? But another thing, Giovanni from SC Village told me when 7-man was dying, he goes, Mike, any format that needs more than 20 boxes of paint is never going to be successful. And I'm thinking to myself, old man, you're crazy. Like, 20 boxes, you mean cases, right? Like, this is how immature I am at this time. But he was right. When we went away from that format, we all had tons of fun playing 7-man, didn't we? I'm not saying no knock at X-Ball, but it was just very easy for us to go do that. We must, and Chris from APPA has been saying it. He's like, I'll even eat the APPA fees just to run basic 5-man at your events. You know what I mean? Just basic. But for us, we're more focused on that D6 3-man beginner. Like, and I think if the cost could come down and we can just call every field in the area, hey man, how many teams you got out there, Ryan? 4? Cool. 4 entries for Ryan's guys. Let's call them the Oklahoma Raiders from Ryan's field, you know? But now you're representing your hood, the tribal warfare. You're down here competing. You know what I mean? And like, we do the big tents, everybody's together, and you're just bumping shoulders with like-minded people, and it's fun. Because once we get out of high school and we get out of PE, there's really not a lot of physical fun stuff for us to go do as men, where we have to be around each other like we did in PE, that we can, like, that was a lot of fun, right? Like, we had a lot of fun playing kickball back when. And we get out of that, and there's nothing else. Like, maybe some softball, maybe bowling, something, but there's nothing like this. But we all get together. I think less than 50% of the stories on the field. I think over 50% of the stories off the field, right? It's the hotels, it's the drives, it's the 7 dudes in a hotel rooms, PF Chang's. Like, I think that's what it is, you know? And I think these young guns, I think there's, like, our target audience is young men. Like, and I'm not saying anything about anybody else, but when most these great players we're talking about started, they were kids. So we have to have somewhere safe for them to come in. And again, if your kid is out there being the next mouse, head on up to the top. Like Cameron Blanco from Jackpot. Like, that kid, come on. We all know that kid's going to the top. It's just a matter of time until he gets there. You know what I mean? But we need a safe, fun place. Yeah.
As long as he stays engaged, he's going to be good.
Yep.
He's already.
And Cracker Barrel Thomas Taylor. No, I totally agree. But that's what can happen in just a couple of seasons with young players that we're giving the chance to play. And, you know, regional tournaments, the business model should be this: low cost, high quality reps. That's what you're getting here. You're getting reps, right? And then when you go to the NXL, hopefully you've had thousands of reps at the regional level and you're prepared for that level.
Right. Yeah.
My opinion.
Awesome.
Yeah, he should definitely do one of the.
Yeah, we got to figure out a way to get you.
I'm not letting that go. I've written it down. Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah. We got to figure out a way.
Listen, Tom and those guys know if they call me, I never say no. I don't use the word no. It's always yes. We just got to figure it out.
And again,
I got to start learning how to say no.
It's not just the message you're sharing. It's in the way that you're sharing it, right? Like, you're very passionate about it. You obviously have a deep and critical understanding of it. like people would be able to ask you questions about things like margin, and you'd be able to shoot shit right back at them. So like, it can't.
Well, here's what's important. We got parents out there. We got families out there. That's one thing we like, Ryan, back when you were Texas Storm and I was Aftershock or whatever team I was on at the time, we didn't, like, even our wives and girlfriends didn't come to the field much.
No.
Right? Like
Never.
you were not bringing her to the fox coop over here full of dudes, right? Like we just didn't do that. But now we go to events and legitimately it's mom and dad and kids, like especially Texas and California. The whole family's out there, right?
Yep.
Like, and it's a family thing that we're having fun doing together. Maybe we turn the music on, right? In between points, we're playing music. We're having fun with it. But I feel like it's so easy for us to do. And for me, I'm down watching the premiere, which is semi-pro with like Ryan Hoskins will be playing with top level guys, but I'm down watching those, low end players play because they're having fun. And you're like, listen, man. And you remember back in the 7-man days when you're coming up through the ranks or you're Texas Storm and there's Dynasty, they're coming off the field, you're going on the field. There's something cool about that when we're bumping shoulders. And the NXL, I understand why we do it, how we do it. The pro field, there's a lot of prestige to it. But man, there's something to be said about when you get to walk by and be in the pits with your other pro, like those idols of yours become on your level. There's something just about that markets, you know what I mean? Like you go talk to Thomas Taylor. He's a legend. He's also the nicest dude in the world. You know what I mean? Like he's one dude. I'll tell you how I describe Thomas Taylor. He's the one dude I would leave with my family and never think twice about it. Like he is the most straight line, good human being. I could be gone for 3 years. How was shit around the house? Thomas, oh, good. Read the Bible, did this. Like he's a great human being. But when you get to finally meet these dudes and you put a personality to the face, you're like, man, that's a good dude right there. You know what I mean? That's the dude that you don't want to not be in contact. Or Chris Lasoya, right? Like you meet Chris and everybody's like, he's the bad boy. Then you find out the dude runs into a house and saves people from burning, gets burnt himself doing it, right? That's the bad boy of our sport. The man saved human beings' lives. You know what I mean? Like there's just so much to it. You know what I mean? And I could go on and on.
And these guys all had, I'd say this a lot. We talk about it. We've talked about it several times on the show, 5 times a year. And then you add a practice or 2 that you're going to be with another team. I mean, you kind of pick up with all these guys right where you left off the last time. It's like a family reunion every time you see each other. And you made this statement earlier about like the guys in the league and the kind of the humility, less hubris, more like everybody's just more welcoming. And I think a little bit more understanding that what happens on the field stays there and we come off and everybody's friends. And I do think the quality of human beings, and it's not just the quality of human beings. You also said this too. We're older. We're all older. Right. So like that kind of fiery, whatever thing that and I don't want to say it kind of was instilled to me by the guys I played with, like they wanted you to be brutal and bullyish and and then like when you get older, you realize like that's just nonsense, right? Like I could have been having so much more fun with everybody, hanging out with all the guys and getting to know them then and have a different relationship with them today. Like Chris is not necessarily one of those. When I was working at National Paintball and Chris came to work with us, I had lots of experience with him that were awesome, right? He's a layered dude, right? He is kind of a bad guy on the field. Like that's the role he played, right? Like it's just it's a fucking character. He was the bad guy on the field. As soon as he got off the field, he was awesome. Like he was fun to be around. Him and Candy were always a really good time. Great people.
Because what it comes down to about the friendships is, and you're totally right, you do pick up where you left off because there's no expiration date on true friendships. Yeah. I could not see one of you dudes for 10 years. I could be walking through the airport in Dallas and see you and be like, what's good, man? You know what I mean? Like, because with true friendships, there's no expiration date. And that's another one when we get to paintball. A lot of that stuff, it stays in the car, it stays in the parking lot, it just stays out there, and we show up to paintball. And now that we've all grown up a little bit, it's like, that same practice for one of my guys was blowing up. He was still blowing up on the field, and he's doing it against the Heat guys. Yaya is one of my best friends in paintball. Like, I'm not going to cross a line and say something to you that I have to apologize for later. It's not, if a fight breaks out, I'm going to grab the 2 smallest dudes and pick them up, and we're just going to stop the fight. But like, it's not that serious, man. Like, this is paintball. Like, and at the end of the day, we're still brothers. Let's all get in the car together after you win the next tournament, and I'll buy all the shots at the bar. Like, it's that simple. You know what I mean? Like, paintball's fun.
Yeah. I still have the stepladder you gave me back in semi-pro. Sitting right outside that door.
They just won't let him use it.
Tom wouldn't let me use it anymore.
Yeah.
So
Tom killing our fun.
Killing the vibe, man.
Well, man,
now, Tom, hats off to Tom. He's doing a great job with it.
Totally.
I'm very happy. If you're sitting in the number 2 position in leagues, I'm very happy to see Tom sitting in the number 1 spot. And a lot of people think there might be some like tongue in cheek about that. No, there's not. Like, he's a dude I can pick the phone up and call and talk to about real world issues that I'm facing, or vice versa. And we can work together and not step on each other's toes. When we did Texas, we did our event a month after the NXL. Probably cost us some teams. But again, it's knowing our place and working on the NXL doing better so he can do better, so the league can do better and help grow this thing.
Love it.
Yeah. Those partnerships are critical. I mean, they're critical to the success for everyone.
Yeah, we've done it the other way, right? For many years, where we've tried to break each other down, and we think that by hurting you, it's going to help my pie somehow grow. And, an eye for an eye leaves people blind. So it's time to just stop going. And I've said this before in other interviews, like, it's always got to be our whole society, right? Democrat, Republican, war on this, war on that. We got to, I have to hate you for me to do better. You do not do addition by subtraction. There's no reason we all can't win. Now, if we got to play each other, somebody's got to lose. But there's no reason, like, just that mindset. When you're always in a negative place, and I've been there, I'm sure, Ryan, you've been there. Like, when we grew up being taught by these older dudes, like, you had to be about it. You know what I mean? And like, now that we've gotten older, you're kind of like, oh, I've done it that way. And I really didn't see a lot of great come from that. And I think you get misunderstood. You yell and you're this, and now you come out and you're more like Mike over here, and you're like, man, it's just so much easier to be a good human being. You know what I mean? And a guy that everybody loves and respects. You know what I mean?
It's
so
much.
That's
easier.
my part going forward.
So much. Easier.
It's way easier.
Yeah, way less angsty.
But yet the meme pages love to use old clips of me, and I'm like, good Lord. Every time I get one, my girlfriend will send a picture of it to me, and I'm like, I don't even look at the pages anymore.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I don't like.
Don't read the comments.
I don't read the comments. Yeah, I don't read the comments, man. I just don't. It's because most of the time, again, we talked about it earlier. They're not people I care. Like, if you don't have my cell phone, I don't care.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
Like, if you don't have my cell phone number, I don't care.
And I'm worried about your opinion. You know what I mean? When I'm out here, and at the end of the day, I look in the mirror and I know that guy looking back at me, and I'm like, yeah, you got integrity. You know what I mean? Like, I know who I am as a man. I'm cool with it. Not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but we're all trying to be better people, and we got a league full of dudes that are trying to be good people and help each other out. And I definitely think it's trickling down, right? Like I said, watching at my event, a bunch of guys with the LAX logos on their jerseys, and you're like, man, I mean, they get knocked out and I'm over shaking their hands like, man, just way to be. Like, class act, you know what I mean? Like, that was a tough penalty that came down. I'm not saying deserved or not, but just way to be. You guys are good paintball players. You got your snake player communicating with the 300 guy, and you're like, man, if most pro dudes could do that, we'd be in a lot better place.
Yeah.
So,
totally agree.
Definitely.
Well, man, it has been a pleasure.
It has been awesome.
Definitely. I appreciate it. Have me on again later sometime, guys. We can talk about more stuff.
Yeah,
definitely.
We will definitely have you on more often. Like I said, and I hopefully I mean this, like the league is in a better place. Paintball's in a better place. Having you back as a coach, and you never go away from paintball, like you've still been a part of. But again, just having you back in the league, being able to see your face at the events, we're all in a better place for it. So welcome back. Good luck.
I appreciate it. I'm excited to be there.
Yeah, excited to see what happens with the Bears over the next couple of events. I think.
Me too.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
It will be.
Tell my boy Evan Manners. Tell my boy Evan
Yeah,
Manners, Coach Bianca said, yo.
I will definitely do that. And everybody that tuned in, I appreciate it. Dan, Thomas, all the guys in the comments, we appreciate you guys. If there's ever anything I can do for anybody, please reach out. I'm only a call away. So you guys have a good night. Thanks for having me on. I love talking paintball. Let me know next time you guys want to do it. And I think my daughter's coming in, so I'm going to go grab some sushi, and you guys have a good night.
All right, buddy. Thanks
Sir,
again.
thank you,
Later,
buddy.
boys.
See ya.
Best
right.
show ever.
Man, he's very pointed, very straightforward, no bullshit. And I love that, right? Like you just don't.
I love how I was going to say, I just love how when he's making a point, he carries himself into the next point. I didn't have to ask any of my questions because I was literally going to say, okay, here's the Bears. What are your plans? What are your goals? And then I never even got, he'd already talked about goals, whether it's specific to the Bears or not. He had established, we need to be talking about goals. When I sat there and talked, you've heard me talk about accountability. He says it's buck stops here. Right.
Right.
I love that, finding that envelope. Oh my gosh, I've been preaching that for 10 years. So it's just great to hear such a great paintball mind who's responsible for developing some of the best paintball minds today and players today say this stuff. And it's great for the listeners. It's great for the sport. You're absolutely right. It's wonderful to have him back in the league. I can't wait to see what he does with Brooklyn.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Yeah, I had 5 questions here. I asked 1. So yeah. Because he answered the other ones, just
exactly.
Yeah, he answered the other ones. Yeah, really, he's going to have his hands full, of course,
Sure.
Not because they're not a good team already, because they are. Just, anytime you jump in, especially kind of mid-season, it'll be a little weird because you have to be careful, and he knows it, right? You have to be a little careful. You don't want to disrupt too much, but you have to disrupt just enough, right?
Yeah, but I also feel like I think the Bears, because he talked about that friendship, right? I think there's a familiarity with Mike Hinman. I think you know what you're getting when Mike Hinman comes to the camp. And I think that has to go both ways. I think the Bears have to respect the fact that he's bringing a tremendous amount of experience and they should be listening. And if they do that and they can have that happy medium and meet in the middle, it's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and again, I apologize, guys, when you're going to see this on YouTube tomorrow that didn't make it onto the live. So I apologize for that. But I will get it up on Spotify right away. And I'll throw out something on social media to say so. You got any closing thoughts? Anything else?
No, just that I really enjoyed this conversation. I love listening. All of you out there in Facebook and YouTube Lab and Spotify, listen to take every opportunity you can. The sport is moving in the right direction. We've got to be more than a hashtag. We've got to take action. Right. And Mike's taking action with these things he's doing with his leagues. He's getting out there and doing it. So let's get out there and do it. And let's put our best foots forward. Right. That's all I wanted to say. And don't forget about the Coaches Clinic for Chicago and in Drew. Next week, I think we're having a Team USA. Is next week Team USA? The Team USA show? Is that next week?
No.
I can't remember.
No, 8:20 is Team USA.
Okay, 8:20 is Team USA. Oh, I think next week, is it Coach from Scalp or what are we doing?
Yes.
I can't remember. Yes.
Next week is Vincent from Scalp. So that'll be a really exciting one. He has done a great job with that team. So exciting to have him next week. That'll be a recorded show. So we won't have to, they'll give the IT guys a couple of weeks to get our YouTube connection fixed. Please make sure you sign up for players, coaches, anybody who thinks they can get anything out of tournament prep and getting some resources, as well as Mike and I will go through the whole process of tournament preparation in Drew, and we'll do that again in Chicago. If we don't get enough people to sign up, we'll still do it, but we may not get to do them next year. So if you guys, which again, they'll build kind of year after year. We'll put on different types of clinics. In fact, World Cup is going to be different. It'll be game management. We'll talk about game time and those kind of things. Nonetheless, so please sign up so Major League Paintball continues to let us do these. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Coaches Show. Thank you to Mike Hinman for joining us. Major League Paintball for all the support of the show. Alex Sorensen, Kevin Fillers, and Tom Cole. If you want to elevate your game, get the best knowledge in paintball at bkipaintball.com. Use code COACHSHOW. This show has also been brought to you by Max Sportswear. When needed, get maxed. I'm Ryan Gray with Mike Bianca. Be responsible.